Hello, I'm Pam Parker, and welcome to Access Spotlight with our special guest, Senator Craig Johnson. Senator Johnson is serving his second term in the state Senate. He's the first Democrat to represent the 7th Senate District in a century. The 7th District encompasses the entire town of North Hempstead. It also includes the communities of Elmont, New Hyde Park, Floral Park, South Floral Park, Stewart Manor, Belrose Village, Belrose Terrace, and parts of Franklin Square and Hicksville. Before becoming state senator, Craig Johnson served for 7 years as a member of the Nassau County Legislature, where he was the youngest ever chairman of the Finance Committee and was part of the team that brought Nassau's finances back from the brink of bankruptcy. We are so fortunate to have him here in the studio today to discuss the current budget, tax relief, his dedication to the cause of breast cancer, and school aid. Welcome, Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to help us get to know you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You know, I've been reading a lot about you over the last few days, and I'm very impressed with your commitment to the people of Nassau County. And I understand you've lived in Nassau County for over 30 years?
I've been here for about 30 years in Port Washington. It's funny, I live about a mile away from the house where I grew up.
Wow.
And I love it so much. I have my mother-in-law living about a mile away from me.
Oh, not bad.
In Port Washington as well. My wife is also a local girl. She grew up in Great Neck. And so I brought her across the Manhasset Bay to live with me in Port Washington.
Oh, that's great. And you have 2 young sons, don't you?
2 boys, Benjamin, who's 7, and a first grader at Sousa Elementary School, and Samuel, who's 4, who's at preschool at the Happy Montessori School in Port Washington as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm wondering, you're very young. What motivated you to get into this game of politics?
You know, and thank you for flattering me. I just celebrated my 38th birthday. I don't feel so young these days. But, you know, a lot of it really started through my mother, Barbara Johnson. She was a role model, a mentor to me. And she served first as a member of the North Hempstead Town Board, and then served, was one of the founding members of the Nassau County Legislature. And in 2000, she passed away after a 14-year battle with breast cancer. And at the time, I was an attorney practicing bankruptcy law at a large Wall Street firm in the city, but I had been working very closely with her through her career as sort of a kitchen cabinet advisor. And members of the Democratic Party approached me and asked me to run for her seat. If you remember, in 2000, Nassau County was literally on the brink of bankruptcy, and the Democratic Party had just taken control for the first time, and I think in over 70, 80 years, control of the legislative body in Nassau County. And upon her death, the legislature became tied at 9 members of the Democratic Party, 9 members of the Republican Party. So I was asked to run. After a lot of soul searching with my family, my wife and my father and my sister, I decided to do it. A lot of it because I wanted to fulfill her legacy. I felt that her work wasn't done yet. But it was also because of my love of public service and wanting to give something back to a community that, you know, had a very special place in my life. I love Long Island. I think it's truly a special place to live. I enjoy being part of a community. It's a special place. I love raising my children here. You know, tomorrow is Little League Day. My son will be on the baseball field, and then Sunday we'll be back on there for the lacrosse field.
Oh, that's great.
My wife and I are blessed, and I just felt the need back in 2000 to get into public service, and I really enjoy it.
Oh, that's wonderful. As I said in the intro, you helped Nassau begin to get out of bankruptcy. Could you tell us a little bit about how you did that? It was such an overwhelming thing to think about.
Sure. You have to, and I think we can analogize this to what's going on in New York State right now. Back in 2000, Nassau County, one of the wealthiest counties in all of New York State, was facing the consequence of horrible budgeting by the Republican Party that had controlled Nassau for centuries, literally.
Right.
And they had treated Nassau County government through a credit card, using a credit card. And instead of finding recurring revenues to pay off the debts, they were using one-shot assets. It would simply be this way. If you had a credit card bill, and in order to pay the credit card bill, rather than getting a job and a steady flow of income, they would sell pieces of furniture. And the one-shots finally added up. And what it really took was working with a terrific county executive in Tom Swazi, as well as my colleagues in the Nassau County Legislature, to make tough decisions that required some sacrifice by residents of Nassau County. But at the same time, it was those decisions back in 2000 that enabled Nassau County to succeed, and not just succeed, but also have years, at least a 5-year period of not raising property taxes. New York State is facing the same problem, and we are trying to address it in a similar way. We have seen years, almost decades, of New York State spending beyond its means. Spending has increased beyond the rate of inflation. And the way New York State paid for it was not by really recurring revenues, but by borrowing money. And essentially, the credit card bill came due this year. And it came due in a way because New York's, the principal way we receive income is through the personal income tax. 20% of it came out of Wall Street. And Pam, as somebody who lives in the Manhasset area, somebody who lives in Port Washington, many of our viewers, understand, have seen Wall Street has collapsed. Yeah. And with the collapse of Wall Street, our personal income tax revenues have plummeted. And so now we faced an incredible budget shortfall. So much so that in December, when Governor Patterson proposed his original budget, his executive budget, the deficit he was facing was $13 billion. 3 months later, the deficit grew by $4.7 billion to a $17.7 billion budget deficit. And that's the challenge, is how do you tackle not just a large deficit, but a moving deficit. And it's one that you'll tackle by making tough decisions. Not the easy decisions, it's the tough decisions. But they're ones that we need to make those decisions to bring New York State out of the recession.
Right.
The problem is a lot of people want us to make decisions that would put us into a depression.
Well, how would you illustrate that? Like what are the decisions that you would want to make with this budget? Where do you want to spend the money? Where do you want to save?
We have seen, and the way our budget works is that we've had to make some difficult cuts. We've had to, increase taxes. And no one and especially myself, I don't like to raise taxes, and I use it as a last resort. But the fact is that, again, with a $17.7 billion budget deficit, you need to have recurring revenue. We've also had to increase fees. So we've had to, balance it out with cuts, with increase in revenues coming in. We've also been fortunate that the federal government did provide us with some stimulus money. That stimulus money has been, helpful to us in a number of ways. Let me explain how. Okay. First, when the governor proposed his budget in December, he proposed something called deficit reduction assessment on all our schools. He was essentially going to pull out millions of dollars, really billions of dollars, out of our local public and private schools. What we were able to do is take stimulus money, about $1 billion worth, and eliminate the deficit reduction assessment. By doing so, we were able to prevent our local schools from increasing class sizes. We were able to prevent schools from having to make a decision of laying off teachers. Right. More importantly, we were able to help teachers school districts prevent them from having massive property tax increases. Right. If you look, and it's middle of April right now, and school districts are getting ready to go to the vote on their budgets. I have to say that I'm very proud of our local school districts, be it Manhasset, Port Washington, Great Neck. They have worked extra hard to make sure that their tax increases are as low as possible. Right. And we need to do more. We must do more from Albany, because for years, Albany has failed our school districts. Every year we seem to have a fight, and every year there's claims that we need to do more, but talk is cheap. Right. This year we were able to bring in stimulus money to help our school districts, but we need to do more. We were also able to use the stimulus monies to help offset some very tough cuts to our healthcare systems. We're here, on Marcus Avenue, right across the street is North Shore LIJ, Schneider's Children's Hospital. I have Winthrop Hospital in my district, St. Francis Hospital in my district. The fact is that we were looking at, through Governor Patterson's budget, millions and billions of dollars in healthcare cuts. We're able to take the stimulus money and reduce those cuts. Right. I think it was $14 million or something that was given to all the hospitals in the area. Approximately, a little bit more. But what we were able to do, more importantly, is to reduce any type of tax increases that was going to be put upon our hospitals. We were able to help them, take care of themselves. What I was also very proud to do in this budget, which was very important, is help Nassau University Medical Center. NUMIC is our public hospital. A lot of times it's the hospital of last resort. It's got a major trauma center. If NUMIC closed, which was a real possibility under Governor Patterson's budget, closing the emergency room in NUMIC would have flooded patients to Winthrop and would have overwhelmed Winthrop. I was able to work very closely with Art Gianelli, who is the CEO of the Nassau University Medical Center, and we were able to make sure that monies came in to NUMIC to save NUMIC Hospital. So these were the things we had to do using stimulus money. But they're tough. They were tough choices. I mean, no one wants to, to say, I had to raise taxes. Right. No one wants to do tough cuts, and there are cuts, and we can talk about that people are upset about.
Right.
But we have to face the fact that we have a $17.7 billion budget deficit.
Right.
We live on Long Island. We don't live on Fantasy Island. And some of the critics of the budget process, seem to believe that we have we live in a fantasy world, and I live in the reality. And the reality is we have a difficult economic time. We made some tough decisions to bring us out of a recession. I didn't want to not make choices, because if I didn't, then we'd be going into a depression, which will really hurt Long Islanders.
Right. So in other words, you are trying to maintain Nassau County as it has been, with good schools, with good hospitals, to keep the people running and working, rather than, let's say, give a big tax relief. And where does that money go? I mean, how does that help our
we're still trying
quality of life?
We're still trying to do property tax relief, which is very, very important. In fact, last week, Deputy Majority Leader Jeff Klein, who represents areas of Westchester, myself, and my new colleague from Suffolk County, Brian Foley, announced a very important property tax relief plan that would bring back the STAR rebate check that was taken out of the budget, and it was part of a budget negotiation, but we're bringing it back because we can pay for it. During the budget process, some of my Republican colleagues tried to push it back in. The problem with that is that they offered not a single dollar to pay for it. They wanted to unbalance the budget.
Oh, okay.
My plan actually has money behind it. We would actually use money from our rainy day fund, as well as some other ideas, bringing monies in from expanded use of video lottery terminals to pay for a STAR rebate check.
Okay, because I was wondering, there was an article in the Manhasset Press that was basically saying the STAR rebate check, that's it, you're not going to see that again. Right, so I'm confused about that.
Right now in the budget as it is, that is true. It provides a savings of $1.4 billion, and that's a tough cut. Mm-hmm. But what I've been able to do, working with Jeff Klein and Brian Foley, my great colleagues in the Senate, is we've been able to come up with a pot of money to now refund the STAR rebate check.
Okay.
The budget didn't do that because of choices made by Assembly Speaker Silver as well as Governor Patterson. We've now come up with a plan that says, Assembly, Governor, here's a way we're going to pay for the STAR rebate check. Work with us. I actually, in fact, challenged Governor Patterson and Speaker Silver to work with the Senate. The Senate's ready to do this, and not just the STAR rebate check. We also have another idea called the circuit breaker, which is actually better than the check. A check is a couple $100. It demonstrates, a way to help homeowners pay some bills.
Right.
That doesn't really address the property tax problem.
Right.
Property taxes have been going up, notwithstanding the fact that a rebate check is being offered. I want to put in place what's called a circuit breaker, and it's a little bit complex, but simply put, the program takes a look at a person's income, mm-hmm. assigns a percentage, and says that's a percentage of your income you're supposed to pay for property taxes. And if you pay anything more than that assigned percentage,
right.
you'll get money back from New York State to actually help you pay for it. And under my plan, you'll get substantially more money than you would with a check. And we can pay for that as well. See, that's the thing.
When will that be implemented? When can people actually see that kind of
money? I'm hopeful that the Senate's going to take up our bill in the next couple of weeks, and then it's up to the Assembly and it's up to the Governor. And it's up to our Assembly members here on Long Island to make sure that Speaker Silver passes and upholds his commitment to work with the Senate on property tax relief. I'm hopeful. We have some great Assembly members here in Long Island, but they need to step up and work with us to force Speaker Silver to pass this property tax relief.
I hope so, because my concern, of course, I have school-age children, but my parents, my father's recently retired, and for the empty nesters out there, that the taxes are so incredibly high and there's no more income coming in.
Yeah, and that's why what was important in the budget is STAR. The STAR program remains in place. And in fact, this is a very important distinction. The governor sought to eliminate certain monies from the STAR program. Senate Democrats actually restored the basic STAR and enhanced STAR fully. So the STAR program, when you fill out the paperwork,
right.
that's still in place. So your parents, for instance, if they qualify for enhanced STAR or they qualify for basic STAR, will still get the paperwork to fill out. It's the check, that one-time check that in the budget was removed because of financial reasons, but now through the Klein-Johnson-Foley plan, we have the money to restore it and bring it back. And hopefully the Assembly and the Governor will work with us on that program.
Okay, one last question
Sure.
on this subject. What is the qualification for getting the STAR rebate?
The basic STAR rebate, again, was based upon income, and you looked at a person's particular income and you would get a certain amount based on an area. Now, this is what is very interesting about the STAR rebate check. Manhasset, it's based on an income proportion. Up to $120,000, it would be a certain amount. From $120,000, $1 to $175,000 be another amount. $175,000 and $1 to $250, it'd be a lesser amount. Okay. Where the circuit breaker works better is the circuit breaker actually also takes into account what property taxes you're actually paying.
Right.
And
it's
so
not so much income, it's your property tax and the difference between...
And with your income, so you'll actually get more.
Okay.
Whereas, so if somebody is making $200,000 a year and is paying $20,000 in property taxes, and somebody making $200,000 a year and paying $25,000 a year, under the rebate check program, they would each get the same amount. Under the circuit breaker, the person paying more in property taxes would get more.
That's right. Okay.
And so it's an important program, and what's very important is we have isolated the money as necessary to pay for it. And so now what has to happen is the Assembly and the Governor needs to show the will and the willingness to pass our bill.
Great, great. I'd like to personally thank you for saving 2 programs that are helping to fight the battle against breast cancer. One is the Cornell Breast Cancer and Environmental Risk Factors Program, and the other one is the Adelphi, New York statewide breast cancer hotline and support program. This year I became involved in the Manhasset Junior Coalition Against Breast Cancer, and what we do is we help high school girls learn about the disease and prevention, and we raise money, we raise funds. And this year we were going to give our money to Adelphi. And we actually have a relationship with Adelphi because each year we have one of the social workers come and speak to the girls, and she gives them an introduction to what they're going to be learning about. And they've been very good to us, and so we wanted to give our money to them. And then we found out that they may be closing. So we're very happy that you were able to give some money back to them to keep that program running.
They're not closing, and you should give them the money. You know, this was a very important, these 2 programs are vital in a relationship between government and the private sector, so to speak. I'll focus on the Adelphi program. The Cornell program is just as important, and Assemblyman Mark Alessi has been my partner in making sure that monies were restored. But we were tasked, he was tasked with Cornell and I was tasked with Adelphi.
Okay, so that was your baby.
But we worked together on it.
Right.
But the focus was, and for me, it's personal. My mother, as I mentioned from the outset, was a 14-year survivor, but then unfortunately passed away in 2000. In fact, spoke, excuse me, to the Adelphi volunteers back when she was a member of the Nassau County Legislature. And when I learned that through Adelphi that they were